Hello everyone, my name is Robert Purchase. I am a long-time journalist for a website called Eurogamer. I bet you've never heard of me. I'm sitting here because I've been invited to this conference for a few years running, and I've gotten to know the Polish industry a bit better. People at this conference around me and these guys sitting next to me as well. And earlier this week I was lucky enough to be at CD Projekt Red, to be around the studio during the launch of The Witcher 3, which is, from my perspective at least, the biggest game to come out of Poland, and it's shining a big fat light on Poland and the whole industry. So that's a big, great thing, and they had a Prime Minister come, the Prime Minister come around the office. Following day, went for a presidential breakfast. Even Barack Obama has a Witcher game. He's probably playing it now, you know, I don't know. But the point is these guys, and you're probably aware of some of their story at least, they didn't get here overnight. You know, it's taken a lot of time, it's taken probably a lot of heartache along the way. It wasn't smooth sailing. So what I wanted to look at today with Marcin Nowinski and Michał Nowakowski are the mistakes they made. There's a great quote in Batman Begins, I have to tell everyone this, where Alfred turns to a really bummed out Batman who's all beaten up and he says, "Why do we fall down, Master Bruce," or whatever he calls him, "so we can pick ourselves back up again." So the point is things don't always go our way, and actually it's in those moments that we can learn our most valuable lessons. So I wanted to go back in time with Marcin and Michał and talk about some of the mistakes they've made, and how that's made their business stronger, how that maybe that's made their games better, and maybe how that's made them stronger as well. So let's rewind back in time to those early days of The Witcher 1. How were the times back then? Do you remember, does something immediately jump to your mind about a mistake or a lesson that you learned early on during the days of The Witcher 1?
So, Robert, I'm actually too old to remember, you know. My memory starts failing. No, but seriously, it's been quite a while. And what I tend to notice is that when I'm telling the story of CD Projekt, over time, it gets nicer and nicer back in the day. And I start to forget the pain and the difficulties.
Bring it all back.
Yeah. No, kind of. There were some really scary times, but I think let's start with The Witcher 1. So, actually, earlier today, so just before lunch, Brian was talking here, and funnily enough, our development story, which was our dream from the very beginning of starting CD Projekt, was to make our own game, but we started as a distributor, and the first time we visited, it was the second E3, we had a tour because the first one I was at was in Atlanta, and then we were in Los Angeles, and actually Interplay, our publishing partner, we are distributing and publishing and fully localizing the titles here in Poland. They invited us to their Irvine offices, and it was just before the collapse of Interplay. And they showed us a beautifully looking game, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. And we just loved it. And as you might or might not remember, it was a console-only game, the first one from Interplay. And then that's pretty much when we asked them, hey, so what about the PC version? And the response was actually from Matt Finley, who's right now with Brian running in exile, because he was the Interplay Europe general manager. And he said, why don't you do it yourself? And we were thinking all evening, and next day we said, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. What should we do? Because we don't know what it's to make a game, what does it mean to port a game. And I said, hey, fly over to London after E3, and we'll give you one of our PS2 dev kits, so you'll be able to work on the code. We actually smuggled it through the border. I had a big bag. I think we still have it until today.
What, the bag or the
somewhere in a warehouse, and we started working on the game. But pretty much probably 2 or 3 months after, we got a call from Matt, and they said, hey, Interplay is in really bad shape. Then they had this whole merger with Titus, some heavy-duty restructuring, which really wasn't looking too well. And they said, even if you sign the agreement, probably nobody will pay you. And from my perspective, just stop working on it. I'm sorry for it. Whatever. Keep the PS2 dev kit, and that's it. But sort of the sparkle was already there. So we started looking around, and we found the chance, which we couldn't believe, to buy the IP to The Witcher. And pretty much, historically speaking, that's how the whole adventure started in the game's development for us.
So the first mistake was agreeing to console development.
Oh, come on, I know where you're going. Stop here, Robert, stop here.
So you started on The Witcher 1, and I imagine you young bucks then, starting out on your first game. Well, I know what you did. You overreached and you tried to make a game that, if you hadn't drastically cut it, would have been just enormous. Well, probably would never have been finished. It would have been massive. And that must have felt like you thought it would take X number of people, X years, you had a plan, and it turned out nothing like that, and then you had to adjust. What was that like?
I mean, to put it into the proper historical perspective, first we started externally in Łódź.
Oh, yeah.
On a local technology, basically the same person that was working on Mortar. We thought, okay, they'll do it. There were 4 people. They'll do the big RPG. We had a huge design document. And then we are controlling it from Warsaw, I think, going there once a month. So that's the first lesson. You need to have control over your production, 24/7. And then after a year, we took the tech demo. We toured Europe with all our distribution contacts. Really had all the right meetings set up. Activision, it was Take-Two back then, the Gathering of Developers, is right now Devolver. And we met all the key guys. And then after these meetings, probably like 10 meetings over in the course of 2 weeks, we got 2 emails saying that it was kind of okay. What we also learned that there are big cultural differences between Poles and Brits. And when they say it was sort of okay, it means like it totally miserably sucked. So that's the feedback we got. And then we said, okay, right now we have to do it seriously. We've moved the whole development back to Warsaw. Actually, we moved it to Warsaw, not back to Warsaw, because initially it was in Łódź. And we've licensed BioWare's Aurora and started working on it. And right now I'm coming directly at your question. So we had no bloody clue whatsoever what should the number of location and the size be, because we're not developing anything before, so we couldn't sort of attach the scale to what we were working on. In effect, we started working on the game. We had 15 people. Just to mention, we ended with an 80 people team, so total underestimation. And we've cut the game first in half. And I still remember next to a line of windows, we had all these locations in folders. They were so beautifully looking. And suddenly we had to remove half of them and throw them away, or sort of archive them for never, never. And people were, panicking. There was hysterical moods like, no, destroying the game. It's, And then after another probably year, we again cut a piece of it. I'm not sure if it was half or 30%. And then again, the same. And still, when we finished the game, it was 100 hours. So the first lesson, I think, plan smaller. Just plan and try to deliver a vertical slice.
Can I make a small comment on that? Actually, about the first game, there's still that original design document in the form of book. We still have it in the office. And Adam Bandowski likes to pull it off every now and then and have a laugh at it. It's this is the best game ever. That game in this design document, in this gray covered book, that actually communicates with different planes of existence. It does everything. It's the best game ever. I mean, there was so much stuff. I mean, some of the stuff which is in there, which was supposed to be in there, when we look at it right now, knowing what we knew back then, or rather didn't know back then, is just amazing. I mean,
what would The Witcher 1 look like today if you could magically go back in time and tell yourselves, here's some handy top tips? What would The Witcher 1 look like now? Would you change it, or would you just leave it as it is?
I think the fact that we are where we are is probably lack of common sense. And if there would be too much common sense, it's possible it would be a boring something. I don't know, or maybe it wouldn't happen. I think well, I'm telling it as lesson learned, but I wouldn't change it. I still remember when, because it was developed on BioWare's Aurora engine, and at a certain point, we are quite often going to Edmonton to meet with the BioWare founders, with Ray and Greg. And we've been there a couple of times, and I still remember the discussion with them, because the first time we presented the game at E3, it was at their booth. So they wanted to see the game before us presenting it on the other booth, just to make sure it's high quality or good enough to be shown. We were super stressed. We presented them the game. They said, wow, we like it. You're okay on our booth. And then we had a beer in the evening with Ray and Greg. And we said, yeah, we have 15 people on board. We'll finish the game. It will kick ass. And Greg patted me on the back and said, Marcin, you know, you just see the tip of the iceberg. And I still remember these words, because we ended up with 80 people on board, and it took us 5 years. And it was probably year 2 at that time. So we had still 3 years to go. I, of course, was sure that we had like 1 year to go, maybe with 15, 20 people. So, I mean, definitely, planning was on our strong side, and we had no idea whatsoever at the very beginning how to set up the production properly, and that's key, because development, the process of development, it's actually burning money every month, and the key measurement is how effective you are with the money you invest into the game, unless you have infinite amounts of money, and that's usually not the case with any developer. So if you burn through it quite fast and you do not deliver anything meaningful, your business ends at a certain point.
Yeah. So you guys, by a very gutsy effort, got a game out, and it did well, and it brought attention to the studio. And then you said to yourselves, okay, we didn't necessarily know that much making The Witcher 1, but by golly, we know how to make The Witcher 2. And you sat down and you planned it out, and you actually started making The Witcher 3 at that point as well, I think. But then it all went wrong. You had a big problem. What happened next?
Well, what happened next after what? After the big problem, or what happened with the problem?
What was the big problem? What happened there?
It was an interesting period. I think it was at the break of 2007 and 2008. The financial crisis, a lot of movement, shifting, turmoil in terms of the currency exchange. And I'm touching upon all these things because a lot of development was actually fueled from the turnover and the money we were making in the distribution business, which we had at that time in Poland, and actually at that time also in Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. And
wait, Michal, let me step in here, because it's important. We had Polish distribution, Czech distribution, Slovak distribution, Hungarian distribution, localization center. We had GramPL mail order company. We had the Projekt Red, and we had GOG.
But the biggest problem was actually with
so we had a lot on our plate.
But the biggest problem was actually with the distribution company, which was importing goods in American dollars, or paying royalties in American dollars, British pound, and euro. And we import a lot of stock for the Christmas period in 2007. And the shift, for example, I think the shift of currency exchange in euro was from 3.2 to 5 Polish zlotys in Jan, at the end of Jan, where we had to pay the invoices. And we didn't protect the currency exchange. So it was a huge, gigantic hit we took over the period of 2 months. Pretty much, it was either lost margin completely, or we came out somewhere on zero, more frequently lost margins. So we ended up with huge debts, which we had to restructure, renegotiate, and the studio was in a crucial period of development. And all those things were overlapping and really causing us a lot of problem. Not to mention the fact that we had the situation in France, which you may want to talk about a little bit more.
Yeah, but just to add to that. So, I mean, it pretty much crisis hit us, and we had too much on our plate to chew. So when the business was going well, we didn't need to optimize every single thing. And suddenly when it started folding big time. And again, when the main, let's call it a cash cow, or cash flow generator, our distribution started to be more of a black hole, then the whole machine stopped performing. And instead of doing business and focusing on development, we had to focus to restruct in order to survive. So actually, a lesson learned here is, I mean, just make sure you're focused. I think we learned very well. I'm not saying do one thing at a time, because you always need a plan B and ideally a plan C. But you don't need to go to plan Y and have 27 companies open. I never understood. There are some business models like that and companies being successful. I think it's very personal. It's totally not our way. We have to have control. At least I'm talking for myself. I have to have control and be able to go in detail about every single thing we are working on. And then actually before the crisis hit, we opened one more big thing. We started working on the console version of Witcher 1 because Aurora engine from BioWare, there was no chance we can move it to console.
It's that console issue again.
The rise of the White Wolf, yes.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, that's the console issue again, actually. But that's where we started. That's where we started. Yeah. So it's a long march. But we actually signed a very lovely agreement with our publisher Atari. We owned everything, and they help us fund the development of a console version, namely PS3 and X360 of Witcher 1. It was called Witcher 1 White Wolf, The Rise of the White Wolf. Developed in France. We found a developer whom we didn't really check. And as you can imagine, the costs of developing a game in France are slightly, probably at that time, were like 5 times higher than in Poland. There was a big team. It was like 80 people. And initially we started, I mean, because when you start and they said, hey, we have the technology, we have the engine, no worries. But the first 5-6 months is like a black hole. So you just send wire transfers and there's nothing to show. Oh, we can show you a bunch of code, but you really get nothing out of it. But then when the first really, meaningful deliverables started, they were constantly moved and we saw that there is nothing. So we started sending more developers. Adam Badowski, the head of the studio right now, went there. Then at a certain point, I think there was 80 people team from Widescreen Games and 20 people team from us. So we had like set the Projekt Red Lyon, a lovely place to walk, very cheap. They missed deliverables. We signed 2 new agreements, or actually addendums. And then there was a very important thing, because how the whole deal was constructed was that Atari was paying us advances. We were paying Widescreen Games. We had a certain margin built in, but we were on the hook for the money. So if anything goes wrong, we were the ones to blame and to get the money back from. They prepared a vertical slice, and actually Adam Badowski made miracle happens. The beautiful vertical slice shown at the Atari Europe conference, everybody clapping their hands, dynamic fight. And then probably 2 weeks later, when we paid Widescreen Games, they told us, the third time, we have to move it 6 months. And we were like, oh, it looks kind of tough. Then we sent, I think, 7 or 8 people over, made a thorough due diligence. And after a week, sitting in a cafe in the evening, we had people, from different departments, like our key production guy, key programmers, myself and Adam Kiciński. We were talking to the management of the company, and everyone was saying their opinion. So like, the first guy's like, it's gonna be tough. They will need 6 months. The next guy, it's like, oh, probably 1 year. The third guy, they might not even finish it, and the fourth guy, and even if they will, the quality will be probably crap, because these guys just didn't know how to port a console game. They thought it will be very simple, but when they got into the all of the RPG systems, they realized it's really hardcore stuff. The next day we pulled the plug. We announced it to Atari. There was actually Phil Harrison back in the day there. I think they really thought, the guys at Widescreen Games, that we are negotiating with them, but we packed the car to the ceiling with every last keyboard, and we said, see you. A few days later, we sell them a breach notice, and a few days later, Phil Harrison called me and told me that they are sending us a breach notice, and we owe them a few $1 million. So, and that was in the middle of the whole shitstorm. So, yes, we spread ourselves too thin on this one, and when the crisis hit, we really had a huge problem. It took us 2 years to reorganize and extinguish all the fires.
So, The Witcher 2, which you'd been so excited to make, all this time hadn't really got going because you've been trying to fight fires in all these different places. And worse, you found yourselves in a dire financial situation, and you had to get yourself listed on the stock exchange in a reverse takeover to finally sort that out and get yourselves back on your feet. Was everything smooth sailing then for The Witcher 2?
Smooth from that moment on, after we launched the Witcher 2 PC, you mean?
Yeah.
It was smooth sinking, you know.
No. I mean, after Witcher 2,
After Witcher 2.
Witcher 2 PC, we thought it's going to be smooth for a while, but then the Witcher 2 X360 came, and we got into a couple of tricky situations, coming out of the way we had our agreements phrased, and so put it, interpretations we got from certain legal people over certain
Well, Michal,
language.
maybe let's not go into too much legal detail because the audience will fall asleep here.
But basically, we put ourselves in a lot of trouble, well, maybe not in a lot of trouble, but in some trouble by signing a deal with THQ, which we both signed that lovely day in Aguara Hills.
It was a sunny day in California.
Yeah. You know, smiles on the faces on both sides, not so many smiles about a month and a half after, I believe. And a bit different discussion with THQ. I believe Karma is somewhere out there. THQ is not here. We are. But it was not good discussions. Maybe let's not go into more details. And then some debate with our partner in France as well, which was afterfall of again some legal interpretation we had in the previous deals we had concerning certain rights to the follow-ups of the game and so on, which put us in a very tricky situation because again, instead of focusing purely on promoting and selling the game, I think we really had like proper 3 months of promotion of The Witcher 2 X360.
Yeah, and 6 months in the courts of Lyon. A very lovely experience.
It was ridiculous situation where we literally were frustrated because we did not have time to focus on promotion and sales, but had to spend loads of time, loads of Marcin's times, Adam Kiciński's times, and many others people traveling to Lyon, to the court, and so on. And the Lyon court story is an interesting one in itself.
But I would like to conclude on that because we didn't realize it back then, but if you look at our history, what we've been doing, we started as distribution. So our business was, of course, gaming and passion for games, but it was about selling games, about how to successfully sell and deliver markets to gamers to make them happy, like all these Polish versions, Extra Klasyka, the budget range, and whatnot. It was all for gamers, but this was smart business decisions. And then with Witcher 1, at the end we needed a bit of financing, I would say probably like 20%, and we had to make a deal with publisher. Digital distribution back in 2007 was practically non-existent. So we said, okay, we'll sign a publishing deal, we'll keep all the rights, but we had to give away a lot of our freedom, what was very hard for us because we are not used to this. We are doing always everything ourselves. And okay, we're frustrated on Witcher 1, then we came to Witcher 2, we signed already co-publishing deal, but all the fuss with the X360 version was pretty much us being a self-published company, self-publishing company, and our partners trying to really, I think it's never a 50-50. I learned one thing. Before I thought that co-publishing is really possible, I totally don't believe in that. Somebody has to be in charge. Either you're a developer or you take full responsibility for your title and you go full Monty and you're on the hook for whatever you do.
But looking back in time, I don't think we had too much choice in the Witcher 1 times. Not really.
No, we didn't.
In Witcher 2 times, the PC one, I don't think we had that much choice either. And I think all the steps we went through were really us fighting through to the position we were able to take finally with The Witcher 3, where we were able to get to control things we could not earlier. I think we just had to go through certain steps, stages, through certain fights, certain problems, and come out on top of that to basically get to the position we were able to take finally. I don't think we would be able to do it just like right out of the bat. It's
I just want to say one thing, because I don't want us to sound like, you know, cunning business people. We were never really fighting that much for the money, but for the decision making and taking the responsibility for the decision, because nothing frustrated me more than stupid publishing decisions or stupid decisions on talking to the media, on PR events, you know. And frankly speaking, just a brief example. I'm not sure if you have noticed on the sites, it was yesterday or 2 days ago on IGN, GameSpot, or Eurogamer as well, an article saying that we have added a letter to the game, a thank you note to gamers. And I wanted to do the same on Witcher 2, but I wanted to do it for reviewers. And I was pretty much told that it will not happen. Why? Because no. And I got really,
it's
really
additional
annoyed.
Cost of goods.
Whatever. I mean, it was some.
Cost
And
5 cents to put in
I
a
wanted
box.
to have it printed on a parchment and signed, just to give this additional, you know. This is the things which frustrate me the most, because we cannot do what's best for our title, and that's why we are fighting. And of course, after that comes the business model, because if we are in charge, we take bigger risks and we get higher revenue if there's success. That's okay. But it's not because I'm saying that we are fighting, I don't know, for additional, I don't know, 20%. No, the business terms were okay. We wanted to get control of what we are doing.
And there's even a better example. You remember the first enhanced edition? How everybody was opposing that initially when the idea was put forward to the publisher. They were like, "Oh, it's a cool idea. Let's sell this as a special add-on, you know, to the people as an extra." And then there was an argument. No. The whole idea is to actually make it, you know, a re-edition. Just give it within the same price. Put extra stuff in the box. Make it a little bit more attractive. No, it's extra cost of goods. This is going to eat up in margin, and this is really such rich content. We could sell it as an extra. And there was like an endless debate. Everybody thought this is the stupidest idea on earth until
David Gardner came.
Exactly, David Gardner. That was a very memorable lunch we had with him in the Chinese place in San Francisco.
You had the lunch. I was talking for 1 hour.
Yeah, I was eating. Marcin was talking all the time. But basically, he pretty much at this lunch he agreed, nodded, and it happened later on. And then everybody was the father of that idea.
And I think actually gamers in Poland might not realize it, but the launch edition of Witcher 1 in Poland was the best edition in the world, because outside of Poland and Eastern Europe, Atari didn't allow us to make such a beefed up edition because costs of goods are too high. So the enhanced edition was actually what was in the Polish edition, plus the additional content, like 8 gigabytes of stuff we've produced.
Okay, so you've taken years of learning through some very hard situations there, and then The Witcher 3 comes around, and you guys make your most ambitious bet yet with all that learning. And The Witcher 3, there were a couple of delays. How was development of The Witcher 3? What were the big stumbling blocks? What did you learn along the way with Witcher 3?
I think we're about to make that summary. I don't think we're in a position where I can really honestly tell you, like full list, what have we learned. But I think we've learned a lot about a lot of more exotic markets, which we were not direct in, which we are direct in right now, like Latin America, Middle East, Asia, Australia. You know, these were the markets which were sub-distributed for us. We knew something was going on there, but it was like, you know, somewhere there we didn't really know what's really going on there. So I think we're going to be, we took a lot of lessons from these markets. We took a lot of lessons on what it means to control messaging globally with a lot of different partners. Hell, even simple stuff like to control how the stock flows between those markets.
I heard you can get the game early in United Emirates.
Like the Dubai thing that happened, exactly, which is a very interesting lesson we're going to be analyzing for a while now, which is again something completely new to us. With how to talk to the local gamers, which I think we did quite well, considering the fact we haven't been doing those things, but we did it more purely out of heart because we've been doing that in some other markets. So we just naturally transplanted the same approach to, you know, to markets like Brazil or Middle East or I don't know, Hong Kong, Singapore. But those were the things which were completely new for us. I think controlling certain things and events which seem to be simple, but doing them on a global scale with a lot of time zones was a completely new thing for us. I think we're taking a lot of lessons from the digital on the consoles, for example, which again is a new thing for us. I'm not saying Witcher 2 was not available on X360 because it was in digital, but we were not in control. And I think that there's so many processes we were not even aware of before we started doing that. Actually, a lot of people were telling us, this is where you're going to fail. This is why we should be doing that for you and take your extra margin. I said, hell no. we'd rather learn that and you know, take a lesson from that than you know, just let somebody control that. And I think we were right to do it. I think we did it fine, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement for sure. I mean, I'm the last one to say we know everything after that one. We're going to know a lot more, and I think we're going to take a lot of lessons. But again, it's a bit too early. It's just a few days post-launch to make like a full, huge list of you know, what we have taken from that trip.
Yeah.
So I'll tackle two perspectives. So first of all, the gamer perspective. And I think we didn't learn it, we knew it, but for the first time we had an opportunity to do it right, to talk to gamers directly, to talk to the press all around the world directly, and pass our passion, or try to pass our passion, like the Sterling event, for example, in the UK. That was real us. Namco organized it in an old Scottish castle. It was incredible. And I think the fact that it's real and it's not like, you know, a PR agency organizing all that and all the fake smiles and everything. And we did it all around the world. And then at the trade shows, be it, I don't know, Tokyo Game Show, or Brazil Game Show, or Gamescom, we talked to gamers, we talked to people, we talked to media. And this connection, I think it really played a huge role in building The Witcher to what it is today. That's really, really important. If you think somebody else will do it for you, I think you have 95% of being wrong here. So that's the first thing. On the development side, because you can imagine that with such a project, there is obviously a lot of pressure, yeah? And not even the fact that we are publicly traded, because we are in charge of the company and we are the ones responsible, so we take whatever decisions we think are best for the game and for the company. But you always think, okay, we promised this. It is, I think, very much a gamer perspective as well. What are the gamers going to say and think if we move the date? Will they be disappointed? And actually, the first time we moved it, okay, this was like, yeah, we move it once, we'll prepare a letter explaining everything. This will not be a terrible thing, but when you move it for the second time, it's like, hey, you little liars, you move it again, so maybe you'll move it 3 more times, and the game does not exist. But we explained it honestly, we laid it out, and it was extremely tough for us internally. We took a month to assess that we definitely need to move it, and we pushed internally everything and everyone we could have pushed in order for it not to happen. But we said, okay, if we'll ship it, the last day, what was it, October, yeah? Then, you know, we'll most probably fail. I mean, the game will be there, but it won't be our game. It will be unfinished, unbalanced, and whatnot. We cannot do this. We spend too much time, and we'll fail. We'll fail as a developer, and we'll really hugely disappoint our fan base. We were in a very lucky position that we were able to fund it, and that's not always the case. But looking from like an external perspective, we had a lot of push from our partners who are not financing the project, who had their financial interests, obviously, and even though they didn't have the leverage, because we also learned how to sign agreements, by the way, if they would have, they probably would have used it. So right now, they're calling us and telling us what an amazing job we've done, what an amazing game we have released. This wouldn't happen if we would have released the game in October, but they would have booked some revenues. So I think we got where we are, and we have this freedom we are fighting for, and I'm really happy with, for that. But it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, really.
And what I like is actually that on the way here, we heard quite a few times from our partners, also sometimes from first parties, like, but nobody's doing it like this. I'm not talking about anything specific. I don't want to go into details, but we really had that kind of line a couple of times. Yeah. And I think that's actually what helped us to be where we are, because we were not afraid sometimes to do things the way nobody else would do them, or would consider them to be maybe commercially unreasonable, so to say. And we just decided that we're gonna do those things against maybe. We were called insane a couple of times, like literally. I actually literally heard that from at least 2 people who are our partners, major partners, that we are insane or mad. I don't remember what was the exact word, but the meaning is pretty much the same.
And then just one more thing. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to bash the publishers, because Actually, I thought like this maybe 8 years ago. It's totally not about it. It's their business. They want to have the revenue. They don't really look at your game. This is your game. You are the only one responsible for it. And if you will not find the best time to release it, you'll probably fail, and then they'll say, oh, you failed. We don't want to work with you anymore. Thanks.
What's your, because we're running out of time here, let's say, what's your top tip? There might be people out there now struggling to make a game. They might be at a pivotal part of a development cycle, or they might be starting out. Maybe they're losing hope. Maybe the mountain just got bigger and they're daunted about climbing it. What's your top tip to someone like that, or someone who's thinking about starting out but feels overwhelmed by the whole thing? What would you say to them?
I mean, in the past I had a few talks about it. So obviously I'm not coding or doing the art or developing myself, but I know very well how the process works. So our biggest mistakes were making too big things or dreaming too big things and then trying to deliver it all at a time. I would say vertical slice is something what really taught us a lesson how to produce. So take your idea, even if it's a simple RAS game, take your idea, iterate on it, and then ask around what people think about it. Maybe send it to the press, ask some gaming friends what they think about it. Get opinion and improve it. I think that's where a lot of people fail. They say, I will make the best RPG, or I'll make this or that. No, just show me the simple mechanics. And that's the first thing. And when you have it, you need to talk about it. Because if you won't talk about it, people will not find out about it, and they will not care, especially if you're doing a mobile thing. But I think on the PC digital market, it's pretty much the same. You exist in people's minds. So I'm talking PR, I'm not talking marketing, I'm not talking spending money, but explain what your game is about, why it's cool. And it really has to be simple. It can't be too sophisticated, like Lenin versus androids and cowboys. Yeah, that was a game. What was it? No, it was Stalin. Stalin versus Martians. Okay, yeah. That's kind of at least you know what it's about, yeah? But try to explain it in a simple way and stand out, because your game has to be the best, the funniest, the most engaging in something. If you don't offer anything new, anything special, you don't improve on something from the past, it's kind of tough spot.
Marcin focused more on the production, so maybe I'll spare a few words about the part which I believe is, I think, one of the biggest mistakes newcomers or younger development studios make, which is completely not thinking about the business aspect, legal aspect, and promotional aspect. I mean, I think a lot of industry craves on the stories, like, a couple of guys made a game that just became this gigantic thing, and they all made a few hundred millions and drive Ferraris and
buy the most
private jets and
expensive
stuff
house
like
in
that.
Beverly
Yes.
Hills.
Exactly, or buy like the Mojang guy, all that stuff. But the reality is much, much sadder. I mean, those things happen, yes, they could happen to you as well, but most probably they won't. I mean, even the best project, if you've got the best stuff on your hands, you have to promote it somehow, you have to sell it somehow, and it actually has to make a commercial sense. So if you can, whatever your means are, be sure you are able to talk to somebody who knows something about business, who can actually do something like a proper P&L and see how much you spent on your game, how much you can potentially actually make on the game. Doesn't matter how you launch it, whether you launch it with publisher yourself, doesn't really matter. Maybe it's reasonable to reach out to publisher as well on some occasions. But if you do, don't necessarily be tempted by the big brands, big names, because just because they have a big brand, big name, doesn't mean they're going to do stuff, do anything about your game. That's not guaranteed. And if you're signing any agreement, really be sure you spend at least some money to show it to somebody who knows what's in there. Because what makes sense to you, there may be a few words, a couple of clauses that mean you're getting nothing unless there's some absolute miracle happening for you, and even then you're going to be just getting a small, teeny, tiny portion just because something you thought is irrelevant, you didn't pay attention to, is going to backfire at you after you launch your game. So really, I trust there's a lot of people who can actually make fantastic stuff, but if you don't pay attention to these details, you may spend a lot of your time, a lot of your life developing something great and getting nothing out of it.
And let me add something to it, that there's a lot of very specialized business people out there, publishing people, middlemen, agents, who if you deliver something, if you have something good on your hands, so you iterate it, you have something cool, if you don't watch what you're assigning carefully, you might end up giving it all away. I will not name the company, not the game, but we were recently interviewing a guy from a big company, and he said, wow, when I signed this game, it was a huge game for DS and mobile, and the game grossed $150 million. I said, wow. And you know, we only paid $1 million for it. And I said, wow. But I didn't say wow because I thought that was the best deal they did. They did a great deal, but the developer did a really shitty deal. And I don't think they're too happy about it. So this is also something what can happen.
And one last thing I forgot to mention, actually, which I was going to, is even if you have the best game ever in your hands, you actually have to think about how to tell people, gamers, that you have it. Because the chances that they're going to discover it out of its own, they're just going to pull it off their asses and put it in front of themselves and, yeah, this is the best shit ever, and just, you know, start spreading that, are that tiny. You have to figure out, think about it. Either you have it in yourselves, or you have to have somebody who's going to do it for you, who's going to help you do that. You have to tell people you have a great game coming. Otherwise, they will not know it. Just your friends and family, and that may not be enough to guarantee you good sales.
So just one final word, and that's pretty much what we did from Witcher 1 to Witcher 3.
Some wise words there from the people who've learnt the hard way, learnt their lessons. Hopefully that helps you maybe learn some of your lessons and have a slightly smoother road to victory. So thank you very much to Marcin Nowinski and Michał Nowakowski.
Marcin, Robert, thank you. We'll have like 5 minutes for questions.
All right, go ahead, yeah.
Anyone have questions?
Any questions? Go on.
Okay, so we are in Krakow, so what about office in Krakow? Do you plan to grow in Krakow? What's the plans for office in Krakow?
That's confidential.
It unfortunately is. Yeah.
That sounds like a yes.
We obviously have plans for Krakow because the studio is here, it continues to be here, yes.
We definitely plan to grow. We are constantly recruiting, so you can check out our CDP Red site, and there's quite a few open positions in Krakow.
Any more questions? Oh, there's one.
Hello. I have a question about vertical slices that you mentioned before. Currently, the issue with Watch Dogs, Dark Souls 2, how those vertical slices look like, and how the final product was completed. What are your opinion about this? Should the developers lie to us gamers like that to show the game was maybe not totally different, but the quality was not delivered?
I mean, I think each of what you mentioned has its own internal story. So I maybe know how it works in the studio, but I don't think I should talk about it. I was explaining yesterday to Robert because obviously we are accused of that on PC, and I think that's what you are picking at as well. And we never lie, and I think at least we try to show it. Of course, there are conspiracy theories and people trolling and coming up with accusations even before playing the game, because the whole thing started before playing the game. If you look at it right now, people start to defend us on the forum. So I just want to address about the vertical slice, because I was talking about something else, but actually vertical slice is a cut out of the game. So
proof of concept, pretty much.
It's a proof of concept, but it's a part of the game, an isolated part of the game. And also, frankly speaking, most of the stuff you see at E3, that's a cut out piece of the game, sometimes artificially prepared for the purpose of the show. And there are sometimes good intentions, and there are sometimes bad intentions, and you'll probably never know which is which. So you can judge by the overall values of the company or how they address gamers, what's their attitude towards them, are they fair, not fair, whatever. I think at the end, this is what they wanted to deliver, and maybe they changed the technology, maybe they did something else. The ultimate test is always the product. Vertical slice in terms of production is giving you a good concept of what the game will look like. But maybe down the line you will take different design decisions. Maybe you will make the world twice as big. Actually, we've significantly expanded the world, and then you had the streaming problem. So I don't want to dive too deep into that. I think it's really companies' ethics. That's what it boils down to.
One last question, okay? Hello. Maybe it's a bit too detailed question because my question is actually about the fighting mechanics in The Witcher 2. And I always wanted to ask you this question. I don't know if it's only my opinion, but in my opinion, fighting mechanics in The Witcher 2 is extremely similar, or rather I should reverse it. Fighting mechanics in Dark Souls 1 is extremely similar to fighting mechanics in The Witcher 2. Dark Souls 1 was released 3 months after The Witcher 2, and I wonder if you have the same impression, and if you have, do you think there might be any connection, or have you perhaps become an inspiration from software?
I highly doubt it. I mean, to be honest, I don't even see the resemblance myself as a gamer, and I'm a huge gamer, but we could ask Tomek Gob sitting here because he's a huge Dark Souls fan and he was on the Witcher 2 team.
Tomek, it's a question to you, actually.
It's actually, we can hand over the mic. No, but seriously, I don't personally see the resemblance, and I think the inspiration is, frankly speaking, impossible, because 3 months, that actually means, you know, when you look into when the certification with the first parties is happening, the whole manufacturing process and whatnot, that's actually a very lengthy process. I mean, the moment when the game goes gold and is actually locked down much earlier than that, frankly speaking, and just being cleaned up, it's impossible. I mean, you cannot make changes, significant changes like that. Even if it was true, you cannot make changes like that within that time frame. It's impossible.
Okay. I think that's all we have time for, is it?
2 more questions.
Oh, I think we're going to go for one more.
One more, okay? So
Throw it. Don't.
Yes, I have a question about your attitude. What you said about being open and this no bullshit approach. Why is your case an exception, not a standard in the industry?
Case of what? I'm sorry.
Case of your attitude towards gamers, like being no bullshit, open about everything.
Is it?
I mean, it's very rare approach that you are taking compared to other companies and developers, and I wonder why it's the case.
I think we are trying hard because that's who we are, and we are in church, and we don't want to change, and that's what we've been always doing. I think it's our way of doing business, and we have a very, very similar attitude when we sign deals, when we pick partners, when we make decisions on communication. And it just works for us. I think it's the right way, but I
personally think also it's because of how we are structured slightly, because we're a very unique mix of being a studio and a small publishing in a way, but global at the same time. And because we are in charge, I think we can and we do what we think. I mean, maybe in some studios, we can't speak for all the studios, there's people who would be thinking like that, but just cannot do certain things because there are other structures above them and those structures don't think like that. I don't know.
I think with regards to the decision process, on the board there's 5 of us, and the way we decide, we never push anything. We have all to be convinced, or we don't do the thing, yes? So it's also, if somebody is raising a doubt about certain way of communication or certain decision of showing something or not, there is no way that it goes through. There is no politics in this. There is no game. It's all honest discussion. We know each other for years. I think it's built on trust, and so far it really works well for us, I hope. At least for me.
Fantastic.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcin and Michał, again.